DA Bragg's case relies on a very particular New York statute. And the effort here, as I've mentioned to you before, but we're going to get into it right now, is to take what would normally be a lower crime, a misdemeanor charge, and make it a felony because, as the DA explained, there was more to it.
Less than 2 weeks before the presidential election, Michael Cohen wired $130,000 to Stormy Daniels' lawyer. That payment was to hide damaging information from the voting public. The scheme violated New York election law.
Election law and possibly tax law, more than one law, which is basically why the DA is saying this becomes a cover-up felony rather than just a misdemeanor. And that means prosecutors will have to prove more than just the underlying business fraud. They'll have to prove Trump intended to commit or conceal another crime. That's what will make it the felony. And to be crystal clear, without a felony, you wouldn't even have this trial. You would have something more akin to a kind of business parking ticket type situation. Now, Bragg says that he can use New York election law, tax law, penal law, or federal campaign finance laws. That's a key part of the indictment. We're going to keep showing that to you because that's a way to understand where we're headed in this trial. Now, some legal experts say this is where the Trump defense team can actually make some hay. The burden's on the DA, and the DA could have an uphill battle on this part of the case, not whether there was a lie. Indeed, the business lie has been, as I've told you, pretty much proven on paper, but whether there was this larger felony. They can argue, for example, the Trump lawyers, that the DA has basically overreached. They can try to get the judge or the jury to look at this as something that shouldn't have gotten to this level. And there are ways, for example, and we haven't gotten there yet, but they could even legally try to get an instruction to the jury to say, you know what, maybe you just want to hit him on that misdemeanor, the business stuff, and end this whole thing. They could also try to argue that Trump just wasn't in the loop, that Michael Cohen went rogue. We've heard that a lot. There's a lot of unknowns. But again, the way we learn about this is through the entire record and both sides of the case. And so I'm very happy journalistically to say that we're joined by Tim Parlatore. He was a Trump defense attorney, spent over a year on several cases, including the high-profile DOJ January 6th case defense and the classified documents investigation. He also made some of his own headlines when he left that case. What do you think of those defenses that I just mentioned? Walk us through, from your experience, how that might work at trial.
Yeah, I think that there are two main structural weaknesses to the prosecution's case. One is exactly what you mentioned about trying to connect it to a target offense. And then the other weakness is to show his knowledge of the actual entry. And you got to remember, a lot of this stuff where we're talking about the payment to Stormy Daniels and all the National Enquirer, that's atmospherics, but really what he's being charged with is the payments to Michael Cohen and how those were entered into the books. And so even though he's, signing these checks, the question is, how much does he know about, how the accountant is annotating them as, as a legal fee, as opposed to, payment of, hush money or blackmail money or whatever you want to call it. And so you have to first get to his knowledge of, as a CEO of a major corporation that's, making payments like this all the time. Is that something he even knows what he's doing? And then when you then try to connect it to that target offense, one of the interesting things here is Bragg has not, he's kind of said, well, it could be any number of these things, but he hasn't said
which law,
which one
let me slow you down. We'll get to that.
One. Yeah.
Right. We'll get to that. You made 2 points. Let's deal with your first point, that one defense is just the lawyers on behalf of the defendant saying, hey, how are you really going to prove that he was in on this notation? I have a little bit of sound briefly recently, defendant Trump making that point. Take a look.
I was paying a lawyer and marked it down as a legal expense. Some accountant, I didn't know, marked it down as a legal expense. That's exactly what it was. And you get indicted over that?
So to finish this point, in your experience working for him as a client, does he get that kind of argument from the lawyers and is understanding that that's going to be useful in the case, or is he pushing that argument on the lawyers?
Well, I think it's consistent with what the evidence here is, because they have an invoice from Michael Cohen asking to be paid that. So when you have Michael Cohen giving an invoice saying it's for legal fees, it's then paid as legal fees, and then it's annotated as legal fees. it would certainly make sense that that is exactly what he's going to claim.
So how do you deal with, on this topic, the tape?
Which tape? I mean, there's
the Cohen tape where he says, hey, we're going to, fair. The Cohen tape where he says, hey, we're going to pay it off.
Michael Cohen, he has given so many different stories on this. When he was initially, raided by the feds, he went and told his lawyer that this was something he did without Donald Trump's knowledge whatsoever. And he'd said that he did it that way because he wanted to hide it, so that Melania wouldn't find out about it. So it's one of those things where you really have to go with how many different stories has Michael Cohen said and how much can you really believe him?
Yeah, we have something on that for your explanation, because I'm curious how you think they're going to use that at trial. But while many people politically in America thought, wow, this guy Michael Cohen really has turned it around, and boy, he's become such an informed and strong critic of Donald Trump. As you know, Tim, this ain't politics. And this ain't about whether other people like his criticism. It's about that arc. So Cohen could be a big star witness. He's believed to be preparing to testify. He's all but said that publicly. But he has been on both sides of things. Take a look.
I know Mr. Trump. I've stood by him shoulder to shoulder for the past decade. Donald cares for no one or anything other than himself. I'm obviously very loyal and very dedicated to Mr. Trump. I am going to jail. I think he's going to be a great president because of my decision to help Mr. Trump hide that payment.
That's just some of the back and forth. I'm also curious if you think the lawyers will use any of what we're about to show and remind the audience. He did go to prison for charges relating to deceiving the public, and he has pled guilty specifically to lying under oath. Would they use that, and how?
Oh, sure. I mean, you've just given, right there a small snippet of what the cross-examination is going to be. When you attack the credibility of a witness, you take in all of their prior, inconsistent statements. I mean, any lawyer cross-examining Michael Cohen can look like Clarence Darrow just by pulling out all of the different inconsistent statements, as you just gave a very brief explanation right there. So what I think is going to be key in this case, though, is whether the defense decides to call Bob Costello as a witness. Because Bob Costello was his attorney when he initially was raided, and he gave him several statements at that time when he was suicidal. He said he'd do anything to avoid jail.
A Trump-connected lawyer who I should mention has his own credibility issues, including publicly releasing what would otherwise have been attorney-client privilege information. But you're saying that Trump-affiliated lawyer who represented Cohen, what everyone thinks of him, you're saying that could be useful at trial. Why? Because he had that period of time where he'd say, hey, this was the version of the story before the story changed again?
He is able to give Michael Cohen's non-public story at the time, when he had the most motivation, to point the finger at Donald Trump. Michael Cohen signed a complete privilege waiver, so he didn't release anything privileged. Instead, this is the information that when the Southern District of New York was investigating this case, they interviewed Michael Cohen, then they interviewed Bob Costello. They had Michael Cohen sign a privilege waiver. And then based on the information that Bob Costello gave them, that's why the U.S. Attorney's Office decided not to bring this case, because they knew that they couldn't rely on the word of Michael Cohen. So even though the judge ruled that the U.S. Attorney's Office determination is inadmissible, the information is.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.